I'd show you today is an example of how to use the Pathfinder tool, or just some basic uses for the Pathfinder tool in Adobe Illustrator. And first of all, to open it up, um, you go to Window and down to Pathfinder, and here it is here. Now, the Pathfinder tool, I guess the best way to describe it is it's a good tool that's used to mash up vectors, cut holes in vectors, and join them and simplify them or make them more complex, I guess. Now, all these symbols on the window panel, I guess if you hover over, it'll probably tell you what they're called: divide, trim, merge, crop, exclude, intersect, minus, front, unite. You know, I guess they're all pretty like self-explanatory by looking at the symbol and thinking about what it's called. But what I tend to do is, as I'm working with vectors, if I group a couple of things together and start clicking them, I'll be going, no, not that one, yes, that one, or no, no, yes, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of a lot of trial and error. So, and often it's unexpected as to which one will give you the result that you're after. So I always tinker with them to get what I'm after. So an example of it is here. I've typed out Pathfinder as if it was like a brand or a logo type thing. And that's just, being typed straight from a text box. And so the first thing I'll do with that is click the text box and I'll turn it into I'll create outlines. So it's more like a vector shape now. And the eagle is also a vector. So the first one I'll show you is just basic uniting. So all you need to do is click and drag your mouse, select both the vectors at once, and hit unite, and then it joins them up. And then they will all fill the same color or give you the same outline to create some sort of logo. Whereas before, one would be one color and the other one would be another. So that's one use for it. And you could unite more than one object at a time as well. So, sorry, if I duplicate that, make it smaller, and select both the eagles and Pathfinder, it'll unite them all. So you can do some pretty groovy stuff that way. Another way you might like to use them is this one here, minus front. So it's actually going to stamp out the P from the eagle. So if I select them both and go stamp out, didn't see. This is where it gives you different results. Like I was saying, so see what happened. That's interesting. See what happened when the eagle is on front. It took the eagle out of just that P, whereas if the eagle is behind the Pathfinder, so that layer is below the font layer, it'll do something different with the same tool. It actually cuts into the eagle. So that's a good little example of what I mean about tinkering with these tools. And if you missed that, it was quite literally the difference between the eagle being on top of that word Pathfinder or below it. So it'll give you a different result. It's very interesting. And so if you go and think about how you might use that stamp out, there'd be all sorts of applications for stamping, letters into different objects and things, and then that's actually, your one shape that you're dealing with. And so if you had that as a PNG on a photo, or something like that, it would, be quite useful if you had just the eagle as a pathfinder. So you could see imagine that black is a photo, and you'd see the photo through text, or different applications that way. And if you go through them, go backwards, if you go through all these tools and just tinker, like this one, divide, I think it does something funky where it almost like cuts bits away from the two vectors. So that's kind of really unique in itself, and you can move things around. That's called divide. Go back here, and that one's trim. Let's see what trim does. Trim has done probably something similar. So something very similar. And I'll give you an example of when tinkering. Oh, hang on, that's funky too. Look at that. So that's exclude, and what have we got here? This is an example where you're tinkering and it goes, "Hey, fella, you can't actually do that." Which is all part of tinkering with it. So if you get that message, it's basically telling you what you're asking it to do by clicking that tool. It's not going to work with those vectors. One more thing I'll show you with the Pathfinder tool is, let's go right back here. Just an example of what it looks like when under the outline view. So you go view, outline. There you can see, like the eagle on top of that Pathfinder text. And if you select both and unite them, that can be a really simple way to see what you are doing to vectors. If you change the view to between the preview and change it back to outline, and you can actually see quite clearly what you're doing. A good application for understanding the outline view and what vectors are doing is I work with a laser a fair bit, and a laser will follow these vector lines, and if you ask it to follow these two things, it would be cutting out two separate things and not doing what you're wanting it to do. So when you know how to simplify vectors with the Pathfinder tool, you then will be sure that you are telling the laser to do what you want it to do, because you've simplified the line to the most efficient vector for the job. Cool. So that's the Pathfinder tool, and as you're working with vectors and text, I'm sure you'll discover more uses for it, many more uses for joining vectors together, and also stamping vectors out of other things, stamping shapes out of other vectors. Alright, thanks for listening. That's the Pathfinder tool in Adobe Illustrator. See you next time.